We are back on the road to City Hall. My next two guests have teamed up to form a new transportation advocacy effort aimed at addressing the challenges facing local airports. Joining us with the details are the Global Gateway Alliance's chairman, Joseph Sitt, who's also a major real estate developer, and Stephen Sigmund, the group's executive director, who's also a longtime political consultant, formerly worked at the Port Authority. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having us.
And let me start with you, Joseph. There are, on your board of directors, there are a lot of other big real estate players. You, of course, are associated with Thor Equities. What made you decide to get into this sort of look at making the airports better?
I'm a global traveler because of our investments in many different regions of the world, many different continents. And when I visit places like a Shanghai or visit a place like Abu Dhabi or Dubai, and I see what they're offering in terms of the ease of travel, convenience, on-time scheduling, concierges in the front, good signage and direction, I get frustrated. I say, why can't a city like New York have the same? And other cities are reacting and responding.
I was going to say, Chicago and Atlanta have us beat out there, if you're talking about signage, parking, and almost everything else, right?
Atlanta's a great example. You know, it was supposed to be in Birmingham. Those voters hesitated about spending, and now we see the economy suffering greatly there. And you see Atlanta that's seen a revitalization and a boom, mostly caused by that airport. So it's a benefit both to the local resident as well as a tremendous driver of tourism and business activity.
Now, Steve Sigmund, you've worked in city government, you know city politics, so you know that a lot of my viewers right now are saying, you know, who cares about Abu Dhabi or Singapore or any place else? What's this going to do for New York City and the residents here? And what's the answer to that?
I think it's incredibly important in New York City. I mean, as you mentioned, I was at the Port Authority for 5 years. There's 110 million passengers who go through our airports every year. There's, you know, multiple millions of dollars that go through our airports in air cargo and in business travel. And we're looking at airports that are, you know, out of the 1950s and 1960s and should be 21st century airports. And I know the Port Authority has a commitment to developing those airports and modernizing them. But without doing it, as Joe said, you start to lose business travel, lose revenue. There's a study from the Partnership for New York City, who's part of our board, that shows that $79 billion at risk from having airport congestion like we have today.
And that congestion results in losses how? People, I know there's a lot of waste just sitting in traffic or, you know, waiting for a cab.
Well,
is that what you were talking about?
Right.
If I'm a business person and I'm trying to decide where my headquarters should be, say a tech company, which is all the rage today, and I'm sitting there in San Francisco and I'm trying to make a decision on a move, and I'm trying to decide between New York City and or staying in San Francisco, one of the major decisions for me is going to be the ability for New York City to facilitate my needs for my business, to get people in and out, to visit me, to do business, to have my own people and staff be able to travel. It's critical. That's one part. The other part is tourism and how important it is to New York City. 52 million people visit this city. The amount of impact in dollars and jobs, business, consumer sales, and sales tax receipts, every which way, shape, and form, a airport hub affects the local economy.
But as a businessman, I mean, work through this with me. If 52 million people are coming a year and they have a pretty dicey time getting here from the airports, with a lot of things that can go wrong and often do go wrong, is it worth it to us to pay billions of dollars just so that they get, like, for example, a one-seat ride to the airport, which, you know, everybody says New York ought to have but somehow doesn't have? But if 52 million people are coming anyway, why spend all the money for that one-seat ride?
The answer is because it could be 100 million people. The emerging market world is changing by the day. You're going to see over the next 10 years a 259% increase of Chinese tourist demand to travel outside the world. You have 1 million millionaires inside of China today that are starving to visit the world and spend. They bought their first cars, they bought their first homes, and now they're ready to start traveling the world. And so whether it's Chinese, Brazilians, Indians, Filipinos, Indonesians, South Koreans, Mexicans, et cetera, all that new wealth is wanting to travel. And we've got a bottleneck here, a severe bottleneck. And it's not just the physical airport as we see it, but it's the total infrastructure of the airport. What does that mean? You've got less travelers coming today from a place like Japan, so they've got their slot. What's happening now is all these new emerging markets want to come in and start have their carriers come to New York. There's no room for them. And you can't and you don't want to eliminate Japanese airlines just because there may be less consumers coming from Japan. And so you need slots for Indonesia, for Philippines, for Brazil, for Mexico, et cetera, et cetera. And we've got to jump and be preemptive to be able to deal with that.
I mean, Steve, you know from your Port Authority experience, I mean, these airports really kind of run their corner of the airports, right? I mean, they're paying a boatload of money to lease these gates and so forth. There's not that much that even an advocacy group can do to sort of make them do what you think is necessary to make it a smoother experience.
Well,
right?
I think, look, I think that's been part of the mistake in the past that the GGA is trying to correct. And I think that, you know, people have thought, look, in the end, there's not that much you can do, and airports are sort of closed off areas. And so, you know, there are reports and there's sort of moments of advocacy, but it goes away quickly. And what we're trying to do is create a really sustained movement and an unprecedented coalition, as Joe said, of business and government, of academia and labor, and sustain it over time and focus on this one issue in a way that it hasn't been focused on before. And when you have stakeholders of that magnitude who are pushing over and over again at the government levels and not going away, then you can see positive change happen.
You know, I've got your 10-point program. The two that I think will probably be most popular here in the city are a better signage, public-private partnership, so that you actually know where you're going when you're getting in and around the airports, and advocacy for the training of TSA officers by private entities to provide a better passenger experience. It couldn't get any worse, so they've got nowhere to go but up. And these are great ideas. There too, though, you're going to have to talk to the federal government about that, right?
The big challenge here and why our organization is so critical is that this involves 3 levels of government. You've got the federal level, the state level, and city level. And normally, each organization or each level of government is used to doing business with things that come within their contained realm of authority. And where the challenge is here and why an independent group is so critically important is we need to pull them all together. We need the mayor's office or whoever is the new mayor of New York City, along with the governor's office, combined with the federal government, to work in tandem to allocate the funds to appropriate and approve and empower ourselves and the various organizations that need to be empowered to spend the dollars and make this happen. We've got to be prepared for our kids and our kids' kids. And if we don't invest today, we're going to suffer in our later days, but more importantly, it's the next generations of New Yorkers that are going to suffer.
Okay, you've got your work cut out for you as the executive director. You're going to be the point man on this. We will wish you the best of luck. If you guys pull this off, you will have earned a ticker tape parade, and I will be there to throw some confetti personally.
You can get on the first float.
Best of luck. We're going to take a break now. I'll be back in a minute with the results of tonight's Snap poll and a preview of tomorrow night's program. Stay with us.